So, hello everyone. So, if you are listening to me right now, I am doing a teaching on editing and proofreading. So, in the first part of the teaching, I discussed that we have some topic that we are going to be looking at. First of all, we are looking at core punctuation marks. Core punctuation marks are very crucial when you're talking about editing. Core punctuation marks are very crucial. We have about 14 different punctuation marks in English, and each of these punctuation marks have their own usage. The primary aim of editing is to make sure that every punctuation mark is put in their place and they do not have, an disturbing mannerism on other words. That is, every punctuation marks do show how a word should be used, and if there are no correlation between the punctuating mark you are using and the words in the sentence, then you've actually distorted that sentence, because the work of a punctuation mark is to make a word or a group of words clear as crystal. Now, this is the core aim of punctuation mark, and that is why it is the primary basis for what we are learning in this group of editing and proofreading. Now, the next one is, what is proofreading? What does proofreading means? Just like you have a surface scratch on a particular object and you are not going as deep as you should, that is just what proofreading looks like. You are just measuring on the surface aspect, like the peripheral aspect, and you're only dealing with that level alone. So proofreading is what we call the surface aspect of content, or the surface aspect of content, especially when it has to do with regard, or when especially when it has to do with, you know constructing and evaluating what you need to work on. For example, now you have a proofreader who wants to work on a certain content. Now, the work of that proofreader is just to look at the minor loopholes that will be present in that work. Now, he's not going as deep as construction of sentences and the like. Rather, he's only looking at tenses. The tenses that are being used in this context or content, are they okay? Should this be past tense or present, or past or present continuous? Should this be a form of an emphasis, seeing the way the sentence is being arranged? So there are many things a proofreader looks at, but everything lies within the surface level. It's also go about looking at spelling errors. Now, this word in this line, is it properly spelled? Hyphenation errors also work on surface part too, because you have to be careful about the presentation. That is what proofreader is always looking at. Careful about the presentation. This content that you want to put out there, is this thing okay? The outline and the like, are they worthy to look at? So you have to be very careful that the surface is alright. But while we make the surface aesthetically perfect, we have to be concerned about the deeper depth, and this is where editing comes in. In editing, you are looking at the overhauling of words, construction of sentences, and the analysis. So you are careful not to change the meaning of the idea, or you're careful not to overturn what the content is all about, but at the same time you are trying to give it a refined approach. You are trying to bring out a refined context from all of this. So what does editing does in the literal sense? Editing helps you to refine the context. So in editing, we are looking at the deeper aspect. In proofreading, we looked at the surface. Now in editing, we are looking at the deeper representation of those words, and if what or how they are analyzed is okay to be used. And if you have a better way where we can put up this word, then we call it, editing. That's why an editor should be built with such a repertoire of knowledge that you'll be able to come up with something better than what your author has given you. So you're not coming with the mindset of you want to check for corrections or errors. You're coming with the mindset that you can actually make this better. You can actually make this better in terms of topic idea. You can actually make this better in terms of sentence construction. You can actually make this better in terms of idea arrangement. You can actually make this better in terms of paragraph setting. Now all of this come together to make the contents of the book a wow. So there is actually a thin line between editing and proofreading. It is very difficult, or let me say it's not as difficult as you think, but proofreading, like I said earlier, always stay at the surface level. Why editing goes beyond the surface level? So the editing aspect of a book is actually what we would call the major bulk of the workload. So the workload does not entirely lies on the surface, but it does lie on the editing aspect. So we are very careful to note that editing is actually the content in itself. Editing is actually the content in itself and not proofreading. Why? You can actually proofread without editing, but you cannot edit without proofreading, because first of all you have to edit, and once you are done editing then you have to proofread to be sure that all you have done are in right standing. So we can do without editing when we are proofreading. It's just, for instance, let's take for instance you want to go out, but you have a limited time to prepare, and you need to take your bath, you need to dress up nicely, you need to prep yourself and make yourself prim and proper, then you need to probably put one or two in order. Now you only have limited time. What do? You ditch bathing, because if you do not bathe, especially if you are someone who is a clean person, over time you could just take your deodorant and you are good to go. You dress up nicely and no one will know that you didn't have your bath, but you know that you only did a surface aesthetics that make people believe that, oh, this person is good to go, whereas deep down you need some wash down there. So that is just what editing proofreading is like. Proofreading will just make the surface aesthetically pleasant to the eye, while we still have some deeper trust to deal with. But in editing we are exposing all sorts. So we are not leaving anything to chance. We have to go deep down and make sure that we are dealing with the roots. And while dealing with the roots, definitely there will be some sort of disorderliness in the context, and there will be some sort of misalignment. Now what proofreading will do at the end of this is to put them in order once again, but the real restructuring has been done while we were editing. So this is what we are talking about. Then how do you identify a work that needs to be proofread or that needs to be edited? You take a deep breath, you look at a book, and you look at the context or the contents, and you ask yourself, first of all, am I coming across errors? Like I said, errors are on a different level when we start breaking them down. We have errors of spelling, we have errors of punctuation, and we have errors of probably hyphenation and all of that. But if these surface errors I've mentioned are not present, it doesn't mean that the book is 100% perfect. We have to look down into the editing phase. Now, how do you know that this book needs to be edited. How would you know? The first point is to connect the topic idea with the content. This topic sentence, for instance, if the title of a book is Motherhood and Career, looking from the lenses of a 35-year-old woman, if that's the title of the book, you have to look at the content and be sure that the whole story of what this is all about is connecting the dots in the topic sentence. So you don't have motherhood and career and what the author is talking about is pregnancy or looking out from the lens of marriage. It's really not connecting. This topic is all encompassing. So what you are discussing should not be just one focal area, because we are not looking at one focal area here. We have so many topics to be touched. Like I said, this is all encompassing, and you have to make sure that you are touching different areas. So you are not looking at just one point and you're saying this is all my book represents. If that's all your book represents, then why are you giving it the topic motherhood and career? Looking from the lenses of a 35-year-old woman. I'm just giving a pseudo topic and what it should look like, just an example of what I am trying to explain. So we should be very careful as an editor to note that what the content of the book should portray should be an express image of what the topic sentence is all about. Now that is the first cue for you to know that this thing needs an upbeat, this thing needs an overhauling extensively, because the topic sentence and the content is not correlating, there is no connection. So this is where the works of editor comes in. Then the last one is working with the title or content flow. Working with the title or content flow, an author brings the work to you, and the work you should do as an editor is to make sure that as an author that your pal is or your client is, you want to make sure that he or she has put all the necessary things in order. Now you are reading as a third eye or as a second eye. Reading as a second or eye or third eye affords you the opportunity to, what will I call it now? Compare and contrast ideas. It gives you the opportunity to weigh so many things. So by weighing so many things, you are working without bias. It's different when the author is working and the author is trying to be sentimental because it is her book, it is his book. But as for you, you are being unbiased because this has nothing to do with you. You're cutting off any relationship that might have to bring you under the subjection of you saying, oh, I don't want to let this go. No, you are working in an unbiased form. And what does this help you achieve? Number one is this: you have the ability to see things in a broader light, in a broader, perspective. You know what should be included and what should not be included, because connecting the dots, you are working with the contents, the topic sentence, and you're working with the contents. You should be able to come up with the core message. You don't have to be the writer of the book for you to understand what I'm talking about. You need to first understand why you are an editor before we can delve into this, because this is actually, a form of self-development at its best. So if you are not developing yourself personally, if you are not going through all sort of personal development to groom yourself and all, I'm not sure you'll be able to take this up. So editing is always about you, being vast in knowledge before any other thing. So back to what we are saying, how do you work with the content flow? You work with the content flow by understanding the topic in question. Understand the topic. If I am giving a book, like sometimes ago I was giving a book to edit, and the book was on werewolf. I don't know, the author is so creative, and she was able to, travel far into history and, this Western culture, and, how it looks like with folklore and folktale over there. She was able to come up with something very creative, and she wrote a story titled Rhea the Cursed Girl. Now, this book has to do with werewolf historical or mystical stories. Now, while I was editing, I wasn't editing with the mindset of, oh, I have to change this, I have to remove this. No. One thing is that there are genres of books that demands a level of expertise, and if you do not have that, take a step back and go and learn. Now, what I do is to be sure that, okay, this author probably has watched so many inspiring things that could have made her come up with this idea, and she's ready to create something out of it. Now you are to flow in that line. You are to flow in that line by making sure she's on track, by infusing any other thing that could make such, you know highly creative in such a way that it is real. You are making this thing look as real as anything. So what are the additives that you need to put in there that will make this as perfect, or make it more aesthetically pleasing than it used to look like? So this is what you should note. You are working with the content flow. The first important thing is the topic. Understand the topic, understand how the topic is connecting to the content, and be able to bring out a core message from what the book is all about. So this is the end of the part one. I have just been able to summarize this, and I hope this is bringing clarity to your understanding, and I would love to hear from you how this has been of help. So feel free to reach me or drop a comment in my channel or at the end of this episode. Thank you very much.